Hey everybody, Fred Love here, and I am doing some prep work for the next session of Star Trek Explorers, my original series era Star Trek Adventures campaign. We're going to play again on Sunday night. This will be the third session. And so just to review, the first session had the players meeting a strange alien entity on this enormous space station. Session 2 had the players coming to this free-floating, huge colony in space that was basically composed of a bunch of various vessels and modules kind of lashed together in the middle of space. So this will be the third session, and we still have not encountered a strange new world in the campaign. So I think it's high time that we change that. So I'm going to do some prep work tonight, and I thought maybe you would be interested in seeing some of my processes and some of the resources that I use. So I think I'm going to start out just by using some of the random roll tables, both in the Star Trek Adventures core rulebook and in the Sciences Division supplement. And I'm going to create a strange new world, a planet for my players to encounter on Sunday night when we have our next session. And then I'm going to roll up some of the qualities of the aliens that they're going to find when they meet there. So let's just jump right in. There's some really cool roll tables in towards the back of the core rulebook, and I've got my copy right here. This is Star Trek Adventures, the role-playing game core rulebook from Modiphius. It's got everything you need to play Star Trek Adventures in it. And in the game mastering chapters, this would be chapter 10. If you go to page 308, there are some roll tables that you can use to create strange new worlds to encounter. And so the first roll table is just the general planetary type. I don't think I'm going to roll on that one because I want it to be a well, actually I will, because I want it to be a Class M world, but there's several different varieties here, like a jungle world or a temperate world, a dry desert world, ice age, something along those lines. So I'm just going to roll. I've got my my original series Command Gold D20s from Modiphius. And so I'm just going to roll on this table right now. And then also, I think I'm going to share my screen and use a Google Doc to kind of keep track of my results. You guys don't really need to see my ugly mug anyway. So we'll use this. There we go. So you should be able to see this Google Doc. So I'm going to make my first roll. And I get a 10, which is, well, that's a Class H planet, which we don't want. We want something from, I'm going to roll until actually it's 2 D20s. We want to get something between 14 and 28. Okay, I think we got one. 16 plus 7 is 23, which is a dry desert world like Vulcan. Okay, so there we've got strange new world. We haven't given it a name yet, but it's a Class M world with a desolate, what did I say? Desert-like features. Okay, the next rule table. This time I'm just going to use one D20. And we're going to roll some planetary features of interest. This is table 10-4 on page 308 of the core rulebook, and I've got to roll on this twice to see what kind of interesting features this might have. I just rolled a natural one. Exceedingly dangerous animal or plant life. Interesting. Decide what those plants and animals are later. And we'll roll again on that same table. So I'm going to get a 5 with warlike, primitive, inhabitants. Okay, that feels really original series to me. We've got dangerous plant or animal like, warlike, primitive, inhabitants. So it's a desert world. Maybe it's sort of like the intelligent species there are going through like a stone age. This is going to be like running into cavemen or something like that. So pretty pretty metal, pretty heavy metal kind of planet. And then the last table here is planetary details. And this is really cool. Hopefully this will give us some really interesting flavor. This is table 10.5 on page 309 of the Star Trek Adventures Cool book. And I rolled a 19 with crystalline life forms. Interesting. Okay. So we've got a good sense of what this planet is like. We've got a Class M desert-like world with exceedingly dangerous animal or plant life, warlike primitive inhabitants, and crystalline life forms. So I don't know if those crystalline life forms are the warlike primitive inhabitants. What if this is a planet with two different sentient life forms, one of whom are warlike and primitive, the other who are maybe more advanced intellectually, but they're crystalline, and so they're really strange and alien. I don't know. I'll have to figure this stuff out later and turn it into a fully fleshed out session of Star Trek Adventures. But the next thing I want to do is go through the Star Trek Adventures Sciences Division supplemental book and roll up some of the features for the aliens that the crew of the USS Venture are going to encounter on this planet. So this is all on page 97 is where this starts. The chapter it's chapter 5, Creating Aliens. So step 1 is origins. I think I'm really more interested in these crystalline life forms, so maybe I'll kind of flesh those out a little more. So the first step is to roll for the life form. Well, we know it's exotic. We know they're crystalline, so I don't know if I really need to roll on all of these. You know their environment. Let's look at their culture. This is step 3. And this is actually a D6. I gotta grab a D6, guys. All I have are my D20s. So I reach into my handy dice bag and grab a D6. Okay. So I just rolled a 1 on the cultural table. Discovery. So the collective evolution of an entire species takes millennia, but once it comes into contact with another warp-capable species, its unique cultural traits are compared and contrasted. A civilization looking outward beyond themselves into the stars has a desire to know and understand the universe and its laws, and to meet other intelligent life. These civilizations endeavor to explore the galaxy and learn new things about the universe through scientific analysis and first-hand study. Okay, so I'm going to say that this crystalline life form, they are driven by discovery, but maybe they can't, because they're crystalline, they're not particularly mobile, or they're not able to build starships. So maybe they can resonate with one another to generate like transmissions that they direct into space. So I'm thinking that the crew of the Venture are going to pick up this strange transmission that's clearly of intelligent origin, coming from this uncharted world. And then when they explore and try to answer this summons, they run into these primitive, warlike inhabitants on this dangerous desert world. And they're like, what's going on? Who sent us this message? It turns out it's the crystals. The crystals are alive, and I don't want these crystals to be like even resembling humanoid form at all. Maybe they're like mixed in with like the sand or the planet's crust or something like that. Maybe it's like the crust of the planet, because it's infused with these crystals, that's actually resonating and generating this message. I kind of like that. That could be a good idea for an episode of the original series. Okay. So, our strange new world, let's give it a name. Well, it's a desert world. So I'm just kind of, I might change this later, but I'm just kind of spitballing because it's a desert world. I'm going to kind of play with the Sahara and call it Saraha 2, the second planet in the Saraha system. Exceedingly dangerous animal or plant life. Maybe because there's so little water on this planet, much of the plant life is carnivorous. So I'm going to say exceedingly dangerous plant life, some warlike primitive inhabitants or humanoid, and crystalline life forms. Fused into the planet's crust of evolved sentience. They naturally resonate with one another and create a, I don't know, a subharmonic frequency. That kind of sounds Star Trek-y, right? That they transmit into space. So they're going to send like a friendship message, like anyone out there who's listening, come to our planet. We can't come to you, but you should come to us. We would like to learn more about you. They're driven by discovery, but they can't travel outward. They can't build starships and explore the cosmos that way. The only way they can discover new life forms is if the life forms come to them on the planet. And so the player characters will have this puzzle of who sent us this message. It's clearly not these primitive inhabitants. It has to be something else. And so it'll be kind of a scientific mystery to solve. So that's going to be the basis for, I like that. I'm satisfied with that. I use the rule tables. I'm going to quit sharing my screen. So once again, I just used a couple of rule tables. This took me about, I don't know, 13 minutes, less than 15 minutes. I rolled up stuff from the core rulebook, Star Trek Adventures core rulebook. I've got the really rad limited edition Enterprise D cover. I had to get that because the Enterprise D is my favorite starship, my favorite spaceship of any property ever in all of science fiction. And then I used the science division source book to roll up some details on the aliens. So like I said, we're going to run this session. We're planning for Sunday night. It's going to be a little late for me on a work night, but we'll make it happen. I'm sure you guys who run your games out there have been through this. It was just really difficult to find a time where all four of us could get together and play, so it ended up kind of being an inconvenient time, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to have a really good time playing Star Trek Adventures on Sunday night. So I hope you tune in and see how I put this planet and these aliens to use in a scenario of Star Trek Adventures. Thank you guys for playing along, and if you have any questions about game mastering and Star Trek Adventures, please let me know. I'm happy to share whatever wisdom or insight I can, or even just a sympathetic ear. So everyone, live long and prosper. I hope you're doing well, and computer and program.